Hey there, IndyCar fans. This is Nathan Brown, your motorsports insider with the Indianapolis Star, recording live from my house, actually, because we are under quarantine. So Conor is with me remotely. Conor Daly, the full-time now IndyCar driver with both Ed Carpenter Racing and Carlin Racing. Here for episode 2 for IndyCar Weekly this season. Conor, how you doing?
Well, we're in a bit of a weird spot. I forget what interacting with humans is like on a real basis. Forget what race cars look like. Don't know what day of the week it is. But yeah, we're just trying to get through it all and hope that we can come back on the other side of this and go racing very frequently and keep the ball rolling.
So I've been trying to figure this out myself. What's the longest that you've gone so far without actually stepping foot outside of your home since this all happened about a week or so ago?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I've been going to the gym every day because my trainer is still working, and it's not necessarily open to the public, but they've been helping us out. It's me and a couple NFL guys. So I've been out, and I've gone to the store, and I've gone to like my mother's house, but haven't seen any friends, haven't seen really anyone other than family or my trainer, and it's been weird. So not really sure what to think about it. Played a lot of Call of Duty and tried to just stay physically, ride my bike every day after the gym. It's one of those things that the off season. I mean, I'm used to this timeline. Obviously, starting racing in May the last 2 years, that's what I've done. But I also was able to go to all the races before May, so you still had stuff going on. Now we literally have nothing going on, and you can't even go to the simulator, can't even go to the race shop right now. So it is a genuinely new situation, and it's really hard to kind of wrap your head around it.
Have you had, I don't think I have, and I don't think my wife has either, have you had any sort of weird things in the grocery store that you haven't been able to find because obviously now a lot of restaurants are closing. Where we are, you can get pickup and takeout from a handful of places, or I guess drive through. But you had any weird go to the grocery store and basically the shelves are completely empty type situations here the last week or so?
Well, last weekend I left Alex Rossi's house and I went to Whole Foods on my way home, and the lady in there I was checking out, and she said, "Oh, you should be IndyCar racing right now, shouldn't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's depressing." I was like, "Yeah, we should be." But no, nothing crazy. I mean, it looks like there's some stuff gone, but I've been able to find everything that I need. I don't know why. There is a need for a lot of things, but I still have no idea why people were going so crazy. Certainly over toilet paper as well. I don't get that craze at all.
I'm glad you're on that boat because I've been one of those people that I don't, of all things to run out of, I don't get the toilet paper thing. That doesn't make any sense to me. But
and even still, I mean, I can, thankfully I live downtown Indianapolis, so I can order, the Cluster Truck and DoorDash, apps like that are still delivering food, and it's been really good. So I normally rely on that stuff anyway, but now, you almost have to rely on it. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, I mean, last weekend when we were getting home from St. Pete, I mean, everyone was thrilled to be reporting on chaos, and they were like, oh, all those fake text messages were going around, and everyone had friends in the Pentagon, and they were like, oh, the whole world's going to be shut down in 2 days. I was like, well, guess what? I'm still, I mean, it's none of that has happened. I mean, yeah, it's crazy, but I don't know. It's become so ridiculous that, no one can believe anyone. Everyone wants to report something that's going on that's crazy. The media is going insane. But obviously there's a dangerous situation that is happening. That is a real thing. But it's just so hard to believe certain different reports. Every doctor has a different opinion on everything, and all I want to know is when we can get back in a race car and get out there.
I mean, being someone who works at a newspaper, even still, it's been so hard to keep up with like what the status quo either of the city of Indianapolis or the state or the whole country is. Like you've got some, like I think last night even you have the whole state of California is basically supposed to stay in your house now for an undetermined amount of time, and it's hard to know like what the next 24 hours even are going to look like. So I think in some ways you kind of just have to look forward like a couple hours ahead and kind of plan out your day, your next day, because you don't really know what your next day is going to be allowed to look like.
Exactly, and that's been interesting because there's a lot of like esports and stuff like that going on right now. A lot of iRacing, people get jumping on the internet trying to do stuff because we all certainly have the internet now, and there's a lot going on there. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to your day, I think you all we can do is take it one day at a time. I mean, it's annoying. Like I'd like to be able to plan ahead and stuff like that, but a lot of these sports and people that are canceling so much all the way through like June and July and stuff like that, I'm like, how can you possibly know that far ahead, that this is still going on? We got a lot of smart people out here working on it, and it's not like there's zombies exploding in the street, which is like, oh yeah, definitely shut everything down. I mean, this is a dangerous thing, and it's certainly affecting a lot of people. But I don't know. It's only my personal opinion. Obviously, everyone can disagree or do whatever, but like, it's something that right now I think all the right measures are being taken, and maybe this in 2 weeks, because we were doing what we're doing now, maybe we'll start, getting better and everything will go sort of the right way. Who knows?
Certainly hope so. There's a whole lot of different trend reports you can look at. Some look better than others, but certainly for racing's sake, hopefully things get better here soon, and we can get back to both for you getting on a racetrack and for me being able to report on racing-related activities. I guess that's a good segue, maybe. Certainly, unless you've truly been living under a rock as an IndyCar fan, what we are talking about is we got to Friday morning at St. Petersburg, supposed to be the IndyCar season opener, and we get a breaking news release from IndyCar announcing that the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg had been, I think technically the word that they actually did use was canceled, and that's been such I think I've used the word or typed the word postpone and cancel probably more in this last week than I have, and it's been so confusing to figure out when people actually mean cancel when they say it. So that was a confusing thing, but for that race's sake at least, the first 4 races of the IndyCar calendar for 2020 have at least been shelved, and some of them actually sound like they are not going to be happening this calendar year. Take me, Conor, kind of how you found out this news. What were you doing that morning? I know that ended up actually being a day off for you guys, and it wasn't scheduled to be that way. So what were you doing that Friday, and how did this kind of play out from your perspective?
Well, I mean, Thursday, honestly, we got to the track and did what we normally do. I mean, there was obviously a lot of rumors, a lot being said. Sports all around the world were being affected all of a sudden, and it was sort of just a minute by minute deal. But I got my helmets ready. We went through tech. We got all my stuff taken care of. We walked the track because actually there wasn't anything on track. For some reason the track walk was scheduled in the morning when we were all on the charter to get there. So everyone missed the track walk except for a couple guys that were local. So I guess since they weren't running anything, we were able to go out there and actually walk the track. And me, Renus, and our driver coach Lee Bentham were going around. But Then when we all heard that, they would condense the schedule, I was already, it's already like, oh, great, this is going to be terrible, but okay, glad we still get to race. You know what I mean? That's fine. We were looking at all the positives, like, hey, this could be a great opportunity for great TV ratings. NBC could potentially benefit from this, and our sport in general. And Thursday just sort of went out to dinner and met up with James Hinchcliffe and actually talked to Mark Miles for a while, and even Mark Miles was fairly confident. I asked him, I said, hey, are we gonna be racing this weekend? Like, is this happening? And he seemed pretty confident. So I think no one really knew what was actually going to happen until it did. When I woke up on Friday, I mean, everything just started hitting the fan. I mean, it just seemed like every hour something different was happening. And it was such a shame. I mean, we sort of, honestly, we didn't really know what to do, and I met up for a bit of brunch on Friday with Rossi and Spencer Piggott and a couple of our other friends that had made the trip down there for the race weekend. And saw Ryan Hunter-Reay, talked to his family, saw Marcus Ericsson. We're all just kind of sitting there, in the streets of St. Pete, not really sure what to do. And honestly, it was super disappointing. I mean, it's so sad to get all the way there. You're literally one day from finally getting in a car on one of my favorite tracks that now looks like I'll have to wait another year to get on. And yeah, it was really weird. I mean, everyone was just sort of, I don't know. It's just, you sort of assume the worst. We're thinking through so many options. And, obviously every day it progressed into, more and more cancellations. And that's just, it's sad for the sport. It's sad for all sports. It's sad for all the people that, are suffering through this, the virus. And yeah, everything sort of started, settling into place, and we all got home. Thankfully we didn't actually have to go through, the regular airport. The charter flew us all in, the same group of people, racing people that we all know. No one had the virus. And, we were able to fly through a private terminal, so we didn't actually, come in communication with many people, and there were no fans in there on the Thursday. And we weren't even allowed to go to the track on Friday. So, so we were really kept away from a lot of people, but it was just a weird, just everything about it was weird. It still is weird. And yeah, we just got to kind of go on from here, I guess.
It was almost a surreal 24 hours because I don't even quite remember everything that transpired in between when the mayor of St. Pete announced, I think it was at a press conference at 3 p.m. on Thursday, that they weren't going to have fans to win. I think the release from IndyCar came out about 11:45 in the morning on Friday, but the few things that I can remember at that point that happened, I don't think the NCAA tournament had announced yet that they were canceling. That happened. You had the PGA Tour event, which is another one of those sports, kind of like NASCAR and like IndyCar, that you don't necessarily think of being a big issue, and maybe you might be able to run it with some sort of safety without having fans there. I think those were some of the last couple sports that held out. You had Disney closing. It just kind of seemed like IndyCar, Mark Miles, Roger Penske, they waited as long as they could, but I imagine still with 2 days left before the event, you almost kind of get to a point where even if you want to run it and you maybe personally think you can probably pull it off without anyone getting infected or anyone being put in an unsafe situation, that almost public pressure, I would imagine, probably has to play into it to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think for the most part, yeah, a lot of public pressure was put on everyone. if you didn't cancel your event, it was the wrong thing to do. And I truly believe we could have absolutely got away with running that event, without any fans. Do the right thing. We're already down there. If we were to be exposed to anything, we would have already been exposed to it, right? So it is a shame for sure that we couldn't at least just get one under our belt, get it going, and then figure it out. Because obviously we had several weeks after St. Pete where there wasn't any racing, and that was my initial thought. Obviously it progressed into canceling everything until May. But yeah, it was just I was the whole process of it as well. I was Ryan Truex, NASCAR guy. He was texting me saying, "Hey, are you guys, what's happening with you guys?" I was texting some of the people in the F1 paddock in Australia, like, what are you guys doing? They had no idea. I mean, it was all happening so fast and so randomly that no one really had any idea what was going on until we were told what to do. So it was definitely a strange weekend, and we all got back home, and honestly, like, Alex, James, and I, we just kind of all sat down, and it had hung out on Saturday, and even Ed Carpenter came over as well, the boss, because he lives pretty close to Alex now. And so we all just kind of hung out there, talked about what was going to happen next, what was going to go on, and then obviously Sunday, the day we were supposed to race, we were watching last year's St. Pete race, which was again depressing because I was not a part of it, and we realized that we hated watching, and we were really dying to get back in there, but yeah, just kind of a strange deal overall. Very, very frustrating to think about. But we've got to do the right thing for the community and for everyone, and so we'll have a lot more people, and a lot of people will come back when we do get going again.
Yeah, it was. I think Mark even mentioned this in his conference call with the media on Friday. I guess at that point it was early afternoon. He felt like, he said this publicly. He felt like there was certainly a better chance, and guys in this sport were a lot safer than you would have been with other sports. I guess if they had a little bit more lead time, maybe you would have been able to, administer tests to everyone. But you got to remember that, there were entire states in the country that were only able to have like 50 to 100 tests at a time. So if you're going to truly make sure that everyone is totally safe, really, I guess the only way to do that is to test people. And when you have 10, 15, 20 people in a car, multiply that by 26 cars and any media that you're going to allow in there, plus safety folks, I imagine it just kind of gets to a point that you can probably be like 95% sure that everyone's going to be totally fine, but maybe you want 100%, and maybe that's where they kind of had to go to at that point to make that decision.
Yeah, I don't know. I know for sure that I'm going to save the worksheet they gave us to come into the track Saturday for forever and potentially frame it in 10 years when we look back on this and say, wow, that was a wild time. Because, they gave us this little worksheet on like, hey, have you been out of the country in this amount of time? Or all, asking you the questions, do you have flu-like symptoms, et cetera? Because that's what we were going to have to hand to people going to the track on Saturday. And obviously we were super limited to people, and I had my dad there, my mom, and my little brother Carter, and I could only get like my dad in and my little brother, and so my mom had to get some help from Doug, obviously her husband, to try and get her on the list. Right, it was like a nightclub, like you had to be on the list to get in.
That's wild.
And yeah, we were ready to go, and we were ready to get in there Saturday, but yeah, I obviously care about this racing family, and I want to make sure that everyone's okay, and I'm sure they made the right decision. But yeah, the drivers wanted to drive, and I think even our team guys, even the team guys wanted to be, doing our thing. Everyone that works on this race team, certainly my race team, I know, and probably all of them, they love racing as well, and they want to go racing. They want to be a part of an event. They want to win like we do. So, so that's what makes it tough for everyone. And then, once it gets canceled, then it's just, then everyone's got a conspiracy theory, then everyone's got their own, then everyone's got a friend in the Pentagon, everyone's got a friend that's a doctor, and then it just becomes a total storm of just absolute, information that you just never know what's right or what's wrong.
Absolutely. And I would imagine maybe this year just about as much as anyone that was signed up to run in that race certainly wants to and is going to be really bummed, but you're now full-time, you've got Charlie Kimball now full-time. This was supposed to be one of Sage Karam's, I think, 3 races this year, one of Sebastian Bourdais' 4 races. You got 4 full-time rookies that were going to be making their IndyCar debuts, a handful of other guys that are now on new teams that I'm sure we're really excited to debut with those new teams. It was after this is my first off season, but from a lot of people that I've spoken to, this was one of the craziest off seasons. It was just, I guess maybe in some ways almost fitting that the off season, I guess technically hasn't ended yet because of everything that happened. Because we've got now 4 races that do sound like they're not going to be run. Everything that's come out of St. Pete sounds like we won't be back in St. Pete until 2021. Barber has already issued refunds, or is in the process of issuing refunds to fans, though that's maybe a track that potentially you could go back to because it's a permanent track. Long Beach has said that they are completely done for any sort of possible race in 2020, and then COTA has, I don't believe, said that they're officially done, but they did announce this week that they laid off close to half of their staff because they are essentially, in a lot of ways, an entertainment facility, and when you have concerts and racing events that are on hold indefinitely, a place like that is just really, really hard to continue surviving. So that's where we are right now in the IndyCar schedule. Now the eyes completely turn, if they weren't already, to the month of May at IMS. According to the schedule as of right now, the first fluctuation was that IndyCar on-track activities were going to be able to start back on May 1st. Some of that is, from what we've read or what's been reported, I think changed to basically May 8th or May 9th with some of the suggestions and urgings out of the CDC. So that already puts the Grand Prix at its current date on May 9th in jeopardy. And then, of course, you look forward 2 weeks after that with Indy 500 qualification the weekend following the Grand Prix, and then the Indy 500 itself on May 24th. Certainly look in a dire situation on those events being able to run even without fans, and I would imagine that they would certainly want to be able to have fans in the stands whenever they run that event this year, whenever it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, like our schedule is very unique, right? Because we have the street events, and that's why it becomes so difficult to reschedule those. And I do not envy anyone in that department because, I mean, you're shutting down a city for a weekend, right? And when that becomes set, you make so many other plans around that. It becomes very difficult. And I think the one that I was, really sad about as well is Long Beach. I mean, Long Beach is one of our most well-attended events, and it has been for so many years. And everyone that put that event on loves that event, and they do an incredible job with it. And that's brutal. I mean, I think, when you look at races like COTA and Barber, those tracks are there. I think Barber, certainly more than COTA, could be rescheduled. I've heard many different opinions on what people think we're going to do with the schedule, because I don't know if, I think we have to do 17 races in like the contracts with the engine manufacturers. I don't really know how that exactly works, but it's like, it's like NFL games, right? I think, if they're playing 17 games or whatever, 16 games, if you miss one, that affects, players per game contracts and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know how it all works, technically, and I don't think anyone's ever been in this position before, so we're not really sure exactly. But, I mean, add double headers. I don't know. Do if we rescheduled the Grand Prix, because we can easily do that. Run two races just on two different configurations there. I mean, something to make it still a 17 race schedule. I mean, I would love to be racing into November. I mean, honestly, because it makes the off season shorter on us. It makes it, so we can still be busy later into the year. Will that happen? Probably not. But I mean, we have races. We can go to tracks in warm climates into September, into October, and still be having a 17 race championship. So now I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what how that even can take place. But, we do have Roger Penske, who has a lot of money, and if he needs to create something to make this happen, maybe he will. And I think we've got a good leader behind us who wants to see this series be successful. So, yeah, I mean, I think it is concerning to look at how everyone wants to just cancel everything. It almost seems like people just want to give up on this year, which is wild, because I not people in our sport, I think people just in general, but the NBA, the NFL, and the MLB, and the NHL, those guys will all survive, right? Like, they have billions of dollars. They're going to make billions of dollars. Our sport is very, very different. I mean, we've got crew members that are, living paycheck to paycheck, drivers that are living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, this is not a major sport like the NBA or the NFL. Our Indy 500 is still the biggest event in the world, yes. But our sport, in a sense of size and money, flowing through the team members, flowing through the drivers, is minimal compared to all the other sports that can absolutely just cancel and reschedule or just move on to next year, because they'll be fine, right? But we've got a lot of people we need to take care of, and we need to be able to think about this really efficiently. So. I think our sport is certainly in a very unique position compared to the NBA, the NFL, and the MLB, or even the NHL as well.
Yeah, I think IndyCar did a smart thing in when they canceled St. Pete to go ahead, and I'm sure that they had been having these types of discussions between Thursday and Friday with the city government folks in those other cities, along with the event organizers and the people at those different tracks, that kind of, they got the sense of, you're not going to be able to run these events, so why don't we go ahead and do this, postpone/cancel this first chunk of races, and then we get to IMS, which of course is also owned by Penske Entertainment Corporation. So you have that maybe slightly improved fluidity of communication, because Roger Penske is essentially communicating with Roger Penske on what they're going to do with IMS, with the Grand Prix, and with the 500. And it gave them a little bit of leeway to see how all this stuff plays out statewide, nationally, and globally. The original message that I had heard is that we probably wouldn't hear anything decision-wise either way for a couple weeks. That might get slightly trimmed down here, just depending. I mean, you hear yesterday, I think the news broke that Monaco is flat out canceled, which is just wild, because it's on the exact same day as the Indy 500. It's one of those three races in the Triple Crown of motorsports worldwide, and to hear, I'm not quite as familiar with that race just because my background is much more so in IndyCar, but I know worldwide Monaco is just massive, and I think that was a really big hit to the perspective of hopefully being able to run the 500 on the same day. But I think in the grand scheme of things, this gave Roger Penske and Mark Miles and Doug Bowles a chance to not be rushed into any sort of decision, because they don't have any decisions essentially until we get to May. Now, I don't think they will wait until May to make that decision, but I think this gives them some lead time to talk with NBC, because they're a big player in all of this on how they're going to reschedule things. You can talk to some of these other track and event organizers and other city officials for these races down the line, because I would imagine that you're going to get to a point where they don't want to just have to come out with announcement after announcement after announcement. I imagine the next thing that we hear from them will probably be a fairly organized plan of how they want and hope this whole entire rest of the season to play out, as long as things don't get even crazier and more dire than what we project them maybe to be at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm very confident in our leadership, right? I think certainly Roger. I feel like Roger can pick up the phone and call the president and get answers as well. You know what I mean? Roger is that type of guy. He knows everyone. He's connected everywhere. And heck, I mean, you know, even Mike Pence. Obviously, Mike Pence is an Indiana guy. He knows how big the Indy 500 is, and you know, I obviously I never get political on anything, but those two people are the head of our nation currently. So, you know, if there's information that we can gain from those guys, or if there's anything, I think Roger will be able to figure it out. And that's good. So we'll see. I mean, I think there are, you know, we're in for a wild ride over the next, you know, few weeks. You know, maybe not a lot of activities, but just to see what news breaks out. And honestly, I just hope that we're literally racing almost every weekend, you know, from May until October or November. But, you know, the thing about the Indy 500 is really tough, because you have, you know, we obviously have had more than 33 cars. There are people who are trying to do that event, you know, as a one-off. And if you reduce that schedule, do people really want to use the money that they've raised to potentially practice for 2 days, qualify, not make the race, and then, you know, it's something really weird to think about. Then do you all of a sudden have only 29 or 30 cars trying to qualify for the 500 because people are like, well, you know, maybe it's not as much, you know, money for people anymore. I don't know. You know, are people relying on late sponsorship deals to get to the Indy 500 and be a part of it and have already committed to it? I don't know. I mean, a lot of the time, you know, in 2016, I got to the Indy 500 without a sponsor, and, you know, we found it obviously with Pat McAfee, like, really late. But I was going to be in a lot of trouble if I did not find, you know, a sponsor the week of the race, even though I was a full season entry. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting time. You got to think about rescheduling literally 2 weeks for the Indy 500 if you actually want to run all, you know, the scheduled, you know, sessions and stuff like that. And my brain honestly my brain starts weeping when it thinks about a rescheduled Indy 500, because I have no idea how that would work. Ever since I literally came out of my mother as a human, there has been nothing different, you know, in the Indy 500. It's always been the month of May. So, you know, it's very strange, but, you know, we obviously just have to take it day by day, and we literally, it's March. It is still March, like middle to maybe getting late. Obviously, you know, March 20th right now we have a lot of time for people to start figuring this stuff out, getting a better idea. I mean, heck, you read all kinds of reports about, you know, China's getting back to work. They're doing all that. I mean, Super Formula in Japan is testing next week. I mean, that's a race series that's literally back in action, testing next week. So, you know, I was talking to a couple of the drivers over there, and they're like, yeah, we're testing next week. Things are a go. And that's in Japan. That's where a lot of people are, and China's not too far away. So, you know, obviously, again, that's just, you know, what's actually happening right now, and we'll obviously have to see how people continue to interpret it here.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to speculate too much on this, but because some people have been doing it, I mean, if you get past May, I think the biggest problem with the 500 is that big weekends that you would want to hold the 500 on. I mean, it's obviously been on Memorial Day weekend for the specific reason of it being a time to celebrate people who serve our country, both domestically and internationally. And you've got the 4th of July is already taken up with the Brickyard 400. Seems really, and at least in my mind, it seems hard to imagine IndyCar being willing to share that weekend with NASCAR and also hold basically two of the biggest events on both their calendars at the same track on the same weekend. And then your other option maybe is Labor Day, but Labor Day has already been committed to Portland. I know some people wonder if maybe they could move Portland, but then you're starting to muddy up the schedule even more because you've got an event that has already been planned, already has fans that have bought plane tickets or put money into hotel rooms, and then to tell them to move their race that shouldn't necessarily be affected seems like an odd position to do. So I think it gets too confusing to predict where the 500 might fall if it has to get moved. Hopefully it doesn't, but I guess only time will tell really on that.
Yeah, I mean it all just becomes extra awkward and extra weird. But I guess in times of crisis, in times of crazy stuff going on, maybe people will work together and figure out how we make this happen. Maybe this brings motorsport together a little bit more and says, hey, we got a weird year on our hands. Let's try and get everything taken care of and get us all back on our feet. Because if one side of motorsport is struggling, whether that's NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, dirt racing, anything like that. If one side of it is struggling, that means probably the whole program is struggling. All of racing is struggling. But if you can, if we can all kind of help, if each series helps one another and all the series are growing, which is which is what it looked like it was doing. NASCAR TV ratings were up this year. I think they did a great job so far. If we can all help each other, hopefully that leads to more successful years in motorsport to come.
I think so too. There have been multiple team owners that I've spoken with who have said they really think, especially if if we start the year with the 500. Now, obviously that's up in the air, but whether we do that or not, that they really feel like because of this layoff and this lag time in a sport that has been growing fairly consistently and fairly strongly over these last several years, both in TV ratings, just in social media, movement online. I think there's a really big chance that in some ways, once we get the financial implications out of the way for some of these teams and maybe even some of these sponsors, that this could turn out to be in some ways like a unifying thing for folks who are already really passionate, and I think it could hopefully, ideally, in a perfect world or a decent situation, maybe this is something that eventually IndyCar not only recovers from, but comes out somewhat stronger, especially if this event and this season can be an exciting one, which I think it was planning out to be certainly before all this happened a week ago.
Yeah, and I hope, something that is really cool that is bringing a lot of people together right now is all the e-racing, racing online, a lot of different racing series, whether it's Formula One, NASCAR. I think IndyCar is going to follow suit as well. Basically official online races, and the fans can check it out and probably even jump in on a couple races, which is really cool. And I've been pushing esports for a long time, but I'm even part of an esports team, and I work with those kids, a lot of the professional gamers, and it's really cool. I've got a Twitch channel that I play video games on and stream on all the time. And this is kind of definitely bringing light to that. And it's, sim racers right now are shining, and they're loving it, because all we can do is, do stuff at home and do stuff online. So, I think that's cool to see, people are actually really trying to make the best of the situation. Each racing series is, and, we'll obviously have to see, see what we can get out of that and potentially continue that once we do actually go racing again for real.
On the sim racing subject, probably one of the many things that you're now able to do a little bit more when you have a little bit more free time than you were expecting. For some people, including me, that aren't super well integrated and very knowledgeable about simulated racing on the variety of platforms that you have, whether it's iRacing or others, what is that experience like, and really truly how realistic does it feel compared to, I know you're not, it takes the risk factor out of it. You maybe don't have quite the feeling of being in a car per se, but how close have those platforms gotten to really truly trying to simulate what it's like to be in a race hard and compete against other athletes on the other side?
I mean, it's tough, honestly. It's still, even the most high-tech simulators in the world, the stuff that, Chevy and Honda use for their IndyCar simulation, the chassis, the real chassis that we get into, the motion and stuff like that. I mean, even those are still games. Are we using them religiously and getting work done with them? Absolutely. But I mean, for me, like a driver that truly drives through the seat of my pants, I have to feel everything. You can't feel certain things. Can you feel general setup characteristics and changes in a direction on where to go? Yeah, there's a few things that you can feel for sure, and that's why we're able to use it. But there are also some people that are just better at video games than other people. That's just sort of how it works. And then that's obviously really apparent. But yeah, I mean, the technology when it comes to designing the tracks, the technology when it comes to designing the cars, is definitely getting better. And I think iRacing is obviously leading the field when it comes to that stuff. And Forza Motorsport does a great job as well with such a wide variety of cars and tracks that you can drive. But yeah, I mean, there are people making money that are being paid to, race online. I mean, there are professional video game players that are making money doing that. So, clearly the software and the programs have got, to a great position. And, I think we'll all be doing more of that over the next couple weeks. I hate racing games, honestly. I'm not, when I play video games and I stream video games, it's normally Call of Duty, Apex Legends, some sort of high activity, shooter game, because I like those. A lot of my friends play those. And I already have done thousands of simulator laps, and when doing that, we're actually doing work to eventually, to help my my racing career and our race team. But when I get online and do iRacing or something like that, there's just going to be someone talking crap and beating the crap out of you because you don't play every 10 hours and develop your own setups and have a great feel for video games. So that's what I'm like. I don't even want to put myself through that frustration because I'm a competitive person, and I can be more competitive in Call of Duty than I can be, on a racing simulator. So I don't know. I'll probably if IndyCar starts to come out, with some official, races and stuff like that with the rest of the guys, I'll probably jump in on it, for the community. But yeah, that's my opinion when it comes to all the gaming stuff.
Sure. So beyond Call of Duty, beyond maybe just hanging out with Rossi or Hinch or Ed, what have you been trying to do to pass the time? I know you said that you've still been able to work out these last couple of days with your trainer. You said you have a bike at home. Do you have? Are we talking like Simon Pagenaud's Tour de France type bike situation? What do you have in house to still be able to be active and not go too crazy?
Yeah, I mean, look, as a driver, you've got to be just physically ready to go, right? I mean, I think that no matter what in the off season, you just have to stay ready. The problem is the off season is great and you're out of the car for a long time, but when you still get back into the car in St. Pete or for the first race, it's really tough because no matter how much you could run for 10 hours a day like Tony Kanaan, but he is still going to be tired on day one in the race car because it's a different race. Fitness is a different level, and you can only get that by being in the race car. And this year physically I felt better than I ever have going into a season. And our test days, our 1.3 test days that we've got so far, I felt really good. But I was ready to get back into the race car because once you get back into, do one race, do two races, then your body, gets used to racing again, and you can take your kind of physicality to another level. But now we're stuck not racing again. So it's a weird sensation. But our jobs, we know our jobs. Yes, we don't have a day job. Like we don't have something normal. But our job is to make sure that when we show up, wherever that may be for the first race, that we are physically as prepared as possible. So, for me, it's certainly, training with my trainer in the morning, doing whatever you have to do during the day, and then getting on the bike for an hour or two in the afternoon. So, just train twice a day, do your thing, try to be, focused on that. Because if you're training twice a day, it doesn't matter if you play Call of Duty for the next 4 hours, because at least you're burning stuff off the rest of the time. So, honestly, though, it's weird because normally, yes, we would be training, twice a day still, no matter what, over the off season, but you could go to the race shop, you could go, look at video, you have a test day every now and then, or you have something you can do, but we literally have nothing to do. There is nothing we can do because we're not allowed to, and that's just, I think it's just so different, and so that's basically it. Our job is to do physical activity. Honestly, when it gets warm, if it does get warm in Indianapolis, I plan on going to the go-kart track. I know a go-kart team that'll get me out there and run and just do laps. I want to do hundreds of laps in a go-kart out of Newcastle, if we can, as soon as it gets warm and they give us the green light to go out there. Because I know a lot of the NASCAR guys in Charlotte are going out to GoPro Motorsport Park, which is the go-kart track out in Charlotte, because it's warmer there. So, they can get out there, and that's, honestly, go-karting is still some of the best training you can do, to get in a real race car, because those shifter karts and those go-karts are really physically tough. So, that'll be a new addition to the training program, hopefully, if it gets warmer here soon.
Yeah. Are you a Netflix, a Hulu, Amazon Prime? Are you a binge watcher guy? Do you have anything that you've been watching or plan to watch over these next couple days and weeks?
You know what? I'll probably rent some movies on my Apple TV. Few movies, but definitely shows. I've been getting through Peaky Blinders, been finishing that up. Probably have to watch You season 2. There's a few things that I've got to get through for sure. But honestly, Call of Duty Warzone has been taking up most of my time if I'm going to be sitting around doing nothing.
That's fair. All right, let's get to some of these questions we had. We got a pretty good response from folks. I'll start off with this one from Scott Cullingford, which I think is a fitting one, and it probably should extend not only to Conor but to me as well. But he asks, Conor, is this your fault for finally having a full-time rides? I think he's implying now that Conor has a full-time gig, suddenly the season gets put on hold. I have actually been surprised that I haven't been blamed having this be my first IndyCar season, that just all hell breaks loose, basically, now that we've started.
You know what? I think I am definitely very responsible for this. It does seem like the way my life goes, oddly enough. And I think if you've been following me for a while, or if you've known sort of my racing career, really ever since 2012, really 2012, 13. It's been an interesting ride. Some very wild situations that are very unpredictable and very like, how the heck did that happen? So yes, I will take partial responsibility. I think Tony Kanaan as well sent me a message the other day saying he thinks it's his fault as well, or he thinks it's because he was losing his full-time ride, but he wants to keep his record going of consecutive starts. So if we start at the Indy 500, he'll be able to do that. And I think there's a lot of things that are going on that are just so wild, but I think all signs do point to my dumb face and my luck for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Tony, his record of consecutive starts, I think, stood at 317 going into this year. Maybe we get to the 500 and start the year, or one of those other ovals. Maybe it's Texas that we start the year with. He gets it up to 318. I think Scott Dixon is the next person in line there, but maybe Tony gets to lengthen that at least by a race or two. It would be exciting. Next one here from Caleb Hatch, who wants to know, if and when racing returns, Conor, would you rather run the shortened season, or would you rather the shortened season be run as an exhibition, a full championship, or as races tacked on for a combined 2020/2021 champion?
I don't like the idea of the combined champion. I think I think we have plenty of the year to get in a full championship this year. And I think that would also start, the 2020-2021 champion would be, that would bring a lot of sponsorships into question, contracts, because a lot of driver contracts are up after this year, to be honest.
Right.
The 2020 season is the final year of several drivers' contracts. So I don't know how that works as well. I mean, I literally just thought of that in the last 5 seconds, and I was like, wow, wonder how that affects everything as well. So I would definitely prefer to run us into November. We don't care. I'm sure the teams will be fine because there's still so much off season to do what we have to do. Yes, it'll be a busier off season than normal, but we can do it because these teams have raced into October before, or even November. Formula One does it. So I think we have to do whatever it takes. Obviously, we'll have to see how the virus plays out and see how insane everyone gets or continues to get. But yeah, I think for sure we've got to get in this year as many races as we can, and see what happens going from there.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Like Indy, for instance, if you put it towards the end of the year, I don't know all of the science and the specifics around like what temperature the air or the track has to be able to run like race type speeds. But I imagine you've still got a lot of time, and Indy is, on the schedule, one of the more northern tracks that you have, so you can maybe even try to shuffle around and get in a couple races, maybe some double headers at some of those tracks in the south, or in Texas, whatever, to try to make up things. I would agree. I think there's certainly a solid chance that you guys get 17 races in, or at least very close to that, unless this all gets really, really, really out of hand. A good one here from the mayor of Moosetown, which I think is a good little positivity type question. Says, the world needs happiness right now. Conor, what has been the happiest moment of your racing career? And then one for me, what's been the happiest moment of my journalism career? So we'll start, I'll go ahead and start with you, Conor.
What was the happiest moment of my racing career?
Yeah.
Well, I think if you pick one, it has to be the first Indy 500. Lining up for that race was probably the coolest thing ever. Just getting there, realizing what was happening. The guys that were also on the grid with me. Dario Franchitti, Elio Castroneves, Tony Kanaan, Marco Andretti, Ryan Hunter-Reay, so many legends that I've seen, looked up to, really, really an impressive, and I was just thankful for, getting there. But also, I think, my first podium in IndyCar was a really special moment. I mean, we came so close to winning an IndyCar race, and it's so hard to do that. But to be able to celebrate on a podium with Juan Pablo Montoya and Sebastian Bourdais, who are two guys that are, obviously legends, that was a very legitimizing feeling. It was a really cool, and special moment. And my family was there as well. So, those two moments are probably, some of the coolest moments, that I've got to experience.
That's good. I'll keep mine at two as well, because I don't know that I have one specifically. I guess my first one, kind of on the same line of your first answer there. Just getting a job in journalism, given how much this industry has changed. My first job, I had 2 internships right out of college. I graduated from IU in 2014, and I applied to just a load of jobs after I had these 2 internships, and randomly out of the blue, got a response from a newspaper out in Palm Springs, California, called the Desert Sun. I was finishing up an internship all the way over in Norfolk, Virginia, and found out I had a job all the way out on the complete other side of the country, covering high school sports out there, and I was starting to get panicked a little bit that I wasn't going to have a job after this internship was over with, and I've heard some horror stories of some of my friends that have been in that position, so it was just exciting just to get a good response from that. Ended up moving out there, drove across the country with my dad, moved out to California. It was a place where I worked for 3 years, met my wife at that paper actually, and then I guess the second one that I'll stick to was just earlier this last year. I was working out in New Orleans. My wife and I got married in September of 2018, and I had been part-time employed while she'd been working at a job at a daily newsletter in Manhattan, and we were living just outside of New York City and Jersey City in New Jersey, and I got a job originally to move out to New Orleans, and we decided that I would take that even though it meant that we'd be living apart. So I worked in New Orleans. A lot of you may know this, but I worked in New Orleans for about 10 months, and my wife and I did long distance, basically seeing each other once a month. And when I heard that this job opened at the Indianapolis Star, immediately jumped on it. It was somewhere where I had a lot of family back here, and it was also an opportunity where my wife was able to apply for a job also at the Star, and we both ended up getting accepted on both of those. So getting back to live with family, live with my wife for the first time in a year after we'd been married for almost that entire portion of living apart was pretty wild. So getting this new job here at the Star, maybe a little bit of a cop out, but was certainly an exciting time for me there. So we'll go to the next one here from Chris Hoffman. Says, Connor, does the cancellation or postponement of races change the races that you will be doing for Ed Carpenter Racing in Carlin this year?
To be honest, I have no idea. I know Ed's not doing any road courses, so any road courses they either add or take away, will go against my schedule. So obviously, if those first 4 races actually do go away and we don't replace them with anything, then yeah, I'm doing way less races with Ed Carpenter Racing. I don't know how that will work. I assume they will try to put in more races, or at least get a more schedule. But the oval races with Carlin are obviously middle and late summer. So if the world resumes world activities, by then I don't see any reason why I wouldn't do that. However, that's not my race team. That's Max Chilton's ride. If for some reason he wants to do those races, I'm sure he will do them. But if he continues to have his stance on what he wants to do, then yeah, I'll probably do those. But honestly, I think there are so many question marks right now. I really hope I get to do as many races as possible with Ed Carpenter Racing, because that's an incredible group, and they put a lot of work into our effort, and we want to obviously go out there and represent for the U.S. Air Force. But yeah, right now I'm still scheduled to do the whole season, wherever those races or however they might be run. But with my life, you never know what could happen.
It does seem, you touched on this a little bit, but it does seem, even though the schedule is very much up in the air, you have the one partner on one of your cars has been, pretty solid in the stance of Ed's not going to run those road and street races like you mentioned, and Max, unless he changes course, has been pretty firm in his stance of not running ovals minus Indy. So even if things kind of get thrown off kilter as far as scheduling or the number of races we get, I would imagine whatever that full season is, it does seem pretty likely that you will probably run whatever that full calendar ends up being.
I hope so.
All right, let's get here from Stitch Turner at according to Stitch. Have you all eaten all the snacks in your house? Because he says he has.
Have you?
I've eaten, I think, close to 2 boxes of Cheez-Its over this last week or so. I've been trying. The biggest struggle for me in this situation is like forcing myself to eat lunch, because I'm someone who, I'll eat breakfast in the morning and I'll get to work, and especially with how crazy some of these days tend to be with either expecting news to break at a certain time or wanting to be glued to your computer, waiting to and not miss anything as far as news-wise goes. I find it very difficult to get up and actually force myself to take a break and eat lunch when you're at home working like this. So that's been the biggest struggle for me more than snacking, has actually been trying to eat 3 balanced meals a day. I don't know what it is like for you.
I have snacks here. I mean, I bought things that don't necessarily go bad. But yeah, I mean, I've just been trying to, like, this week, thankfully, has been, until they close access to, the gym that I go to with my trainer, which I hope they don't do because, there are people trying to get in some work here and it's a safe environment. I've got my morning routine of getting up, going to the gym, coming back, doing lunch, and thankfully we can still order food from food delivery services. So if I can still order food from food delivery services, I will not die. And if that gets shut down, well, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. So right now we're still stocked, we're still locked, and we're ready to go for all the apocalypse.
That's good. Another one here from Dan Kincaid asks Connor, what's the most boring racetrack you've been on? And then asks if it was Monaco or another track.
Boring?
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, there's not really any tracks that are boring because they all have exciting, aspects to them. I mean, I think I always hated Lime Rock. Lime Rock Park for me is my least favorite track of all racetracks. Don't enjoy driving there at all. I've been fast there, but always ended up in the wall somehow. And I've only raced there twice. So I just, other than that, I mean, yeah, I'm not really sure. I think, thankfully, racing is exciting no matter what, and there's not a lot of boring moments.
No, I agree.
And Monaco, you mentioned Monaco. Monaco was very exciting. I mean, obviously, I didn't have a great track record there, nor did my father. When I was not flying through the air, I actually had a really great race there in GP2 in 2014. Not many people will remember. I did beat Alex Rossi, no big deal, whatever, Indy 500 champion. But we managed to score points in GP2 with a very backmarker team, like the worst team in the series. And our team owner was so pumped because we finished like 8th there in Monaco, and it was so fun, to race well there in a very high-powered car because the GP2 car was so impressive. And yeah, it's that I like Monaco a lot, despite what the internet says.
Yes. One here from Patrick Sage. Why is IndyCar the only major series to not have an esports league right now? I know Connor said that it sounds like we're hopefully going to hear more about something like that soon. I've heard the same things. Hopefully that changes here in the near future. But I have heard that there are some rumblings of something coming together to that effect. Have you heard similar, Connor?
Yeah, look, I mean, honestly, we're a lot smaller than NASCAR and Formula One. NASCAR and Formula One have enough people and resources to dedicate to having an esports series. Obviously, we know that there's a NASCAR series. There's definitely a Formula One series as well. Each Formula One team had a team of esports racers. But IndyCar is so focused on trying to make our real racing series, as good as it can be. But now we're forced into doing something else. We're forced into, making something else happen. So they are working on an esports series that I can, I hope to at least be able to tell you about. If I'm not allowed to tell you about it, then I don't know. But there's definitely going to be a lot of driver participation from what I've heard so far, and a way to get the fans involved, and get people to, either race with us, to watch us, and to, just be a part of a racing series somehow, on the internet. So I stay tuned for sure on that.
Yeah. Question here from Drew Vimond at Fat and Chipotle. Connor, what has been the most memorable victory you've ever had in your racing career?
That's a great guy, Fat on Chipotle, Drew. Not great at Call of Duty, though. He could be better at Call of Duty. We'll give him that. I think the most memorable victory, probably Long Beach Indy Lights 2011. Racing against Joseph there in Long Beach was really cool. Our team, was a very competitive team. And definitely my first victory in Europe in GP3 on the world stage, Formula One weekend, Barcelona. I had come off a year in 2011 where, it was a really tough year for me. People had already started doubting me, but I was signed to a Formula One team after that season because by the end of it we got going really well and literally started the season with a win. So that was really cool. To hear the American national anthem there and was awesome. So that was probably one of the most memorable.
All right. I don't know if I've seen any other questions. Are you seeing any more, Connor, before we close things up here?
Yes, actually, I believe I did because I remember when that one came in. I got one. You had the major esports series, all the snacks. Oh, yeah. We got Michael Byers who asked if I was still on Alex Rossi's couch, which no, I did sleep on his couch when we got back from St. Pete because I had no power in my house. But no, I do actually have an actual house. And then we talked about the Indy 500 potentially being rescheduled and all that stuff. Philip Gaynor, he said Stephen Wilson had an interesting plan. Indy GP with the Brickyard weekend, all that stuff, Indy 500 on Labor Day. We talked about that again, but that stuff is like really tough. I mean, again, those people who are going to try to make this schedule or rearrange it, I mean, it's like playing chess blind with pieces that you've never felt before. You know what I mean? It's like it's crazy, to even think about how that could go. So we'll see. I mean, I think overall, we want all of our fans and we want our people that support us. We want the team members. We don't want to jeopardize anyone's families. But again, this is my only personal opinion, right? Like, we in no way can live in a bubble. Like life is always going to be dangerous. I live with diabetes. Diabetes kills a ton of people all the time, and obviously that's not contagious. But everyone's living with problems. It's just a matter of how can we fight through them? How can we get to the next level? How can we get to the next day? We'll definitely get through this, but it almost, from what I've seen, considering I've never lived through anything, I mean, I saw bird flu or whatever, I saw that was going on, but this has truly shut down the entire planet. I don't know how, I don't know how we can continue to live like that. So hopefully, our smart people and, folks around the world, doctors and researchers and scientists, those guys, put their heads together and we all figure this out. Because I don't want to live in a cancel culture and a culture that's just going to, ban us from going outside for forever from now on. So I think we'll get through it. We're definitely taking it seriously. I'm taking it seriously. I'm not going out and hanging with anyone. I'm just doing my thing, trying to stay fit. And hopefully we can all, make it through this.
It's been wild. I think the biggest thing on the rescheduling side that there are probably some folks, IndyCar-wise, that haven't even thought about this. The season has that big break between July and August this year, particularly because you have the Olympics. They're supposed to be broadcast exclusively on NBC, and at that point in the schedule for both IndyCar, obviously NBC is and NBC Sports are the exclusive broadcasters for the series at that point, but they're also the back half of the series of NASCAR's broadcaster. So you have both IndyCar and NASCAR vying for time. You've got the Olympics that are still, at this point, running as planned, that basically take up that entire 2.5 week window of TV time. that sports, assuming that IndyCar and NASCAR are able to run at that point, though you can't run on those weekends unless you negotiate some wild deal with NBC to broadcast races somewhere else, which I can't imagine happening. And then, so that takes up a big chunk of that warm weather time when hopefully things are semi back to normal. And that's a huge hurdle that both of those series, among everything else that sports-wise that's getting canceled right now, is going to have to figure out, because you're going to have all these sports now vying for a very compact amount of TV broadcast time, and not everyone's going to be able to play or compete or race when they want to. And I think that's a big, somewhat understated part of all of this, because sports are going to want to go back to normal, but they're also very much so going to still want to be able to be on TV, and IndyCar is no different than any of that.
Oh, yeah, and we need our TV, let me tell you that. So hopefully we can sort that out.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think that looks like all the questions that we had. Appreciate everyone who sent one in. We don't exactly know when the next podcast we'll have, but hopefully we get some more clarification on what the rest of 2020 is going to look like here before too long. And when we do, Conor and I will definitely be back on here. So for now, the second episode of IndyCar Weekly, I'm Nathan Brown with the Indianapolis Star. For Conor Daly, thanks so much for listening, and we will look forward to talking to you guys next time.